happened that he doesn't know about? Good. He spoke before he could think too much. No matter how important the matter is, he wants to understand it fully. Chapter 75, Farewell Conversation. After school in the afternoon, Helen immediately stood up, leaned down, and gently kissed Perseus's lips. Darling, I'm going home to get ready. Hurry up and come over. Don't keep me waiting too long, okay? After she finished speaking, she blinked and skipped away under the watchful eyes of all the teachers and students in the classroom. Then everyone looked at Perseus with strange eyes. Perseus remained expressionless until those watching him lost interest. After seeing Luna off, he first accompanied Ivisa to the cafeteria for a meal, and then they returned to the apartment together. As he helped Ivisa sit on the bed, Perseus sat down beside her with a smile. Ivisa stared straight ahead, expressionless. Weren't you going to her house? Yes, and I'll be staying at her place tonight. Are you okay staying alone? No problem. Actually, if you don't want me to go, you only need to say one word and I won't go. I have no objections, Ivisa said calmly. This is your arrangement. Since I have chosen to trust you for the time being, I will not question it casually. So, go wherever you want. The word temporarily sounded a bit harsh to Perseus, but he didn't pay much attention to it. If his main task was to infiltrate the emperor's palace and obtain evidence proving that Ivisa's mother and sister were still alive, then going to Helen's house tonight was, frankly, not very relevant to his main task. It's just a minor move for the main storyline. The main beneficiary is himself. Therefore, it's perfectly reasonable for Ivisa to question him. However, he insisted that he had the right to have fun. Before I leave, I want to tell you about Miss Katie, Perseus said. Ivisa finally looked over. Perseus recounted his relationship with Katie, Katie's purpose in contacting him, and the agreement they had reached in detail. There's no need to hide any of this from Ivisa. Of all the other people, this girl was the one he trusted the most, and the two of them had the closest relationship. In this world, everyone can betray him and abandon him, but Ivisa cannot. It's not so much that he couldn't, but rather that he couldn't bear the consequences of her leaving. Using reverse thinking, in order to prevent her from leaving, he would give something more in exchange. Although it's hard to say what this person can do for us right now, I think if we can win her over, she might come in very handy in the future, Perseus smiled. That's fine, I have no objection, Ivisa said. Could you try to get along with her in a friendly manner? This would help strengthen the connection between her and us. Ivia frowned slightly. Is this necessary? Of course. If you can become friends with her, we'll have double insurance. Even if either of us has a strained relationship with her in the future, the other can step in to support us, preventing her from immediately switching sides. If she wants to betray us, just kill her, Ivisa said casually. Perseus was a little surprised, but although he admired Ivisa's decisiveness, he did not approve of such a simple and brutal approach to Katie. Someone as simple-minded as Katie can be easily manipulated into becoming a useful tool. If you don't take advantage of someone like that, you'll be taken advantage of by someone else. Even if the tool occasionally rebels and tries to defy its owner, it can be repaired and the user can continue to be used. It would be such a waste to destroy it like this. Are you a little afraid of interacting with people? Perseus asked curiously. Provocation doesn't work on me. I'm not trying to provoke you. I'm asking you seriously. After all, it seems like you've never had many friends. Your only friend is that flirtatious person, when nice, but it seems like she's been clinging to you since you were little, and you haven't been very enthusiastic toward her. Ivisa was speechless. Why don't you speak? Silence is an answer, which means you admit you have this flaw. Perseus leaned a little closer. I just don't think it's necessary. I won't be enthusiastic even toward my family, but that doesn't stop us from caring for each other. I will remember the kindness shown to me by people outside my family, but I won't say those enthusiastic words. Perseus found it amusing. So, you mean that you actually care about certain people outside your family, even though you act indifferent towards them? Yes. Who exactly are these people? Winnie. Then, it's gone. Perseus looked incredulous. Ivisa was silent for a moment. I've always been like this. I'm indifferent to everything. In the past, many people approached me for various reasons. But when they found that no matter how they acted, my attitude towards them would not change, they all distanced themselves from me. They probably felt that they would not get anything in return for their efforts on me. Only Winnie is different from them. No matter how I treat her, she will still be as warm to me as before when she sees me again. So I gradually accepted her as a friend. Although I'm still indifferent to her, I will not stand idly by if she is in danger. It turns out the saying, even a strong woman can be swayed by a persistent suitor, is true. Perseus felt a lingering fear. Thank goodness Winnie isn't a man, otherwise. Then what about me? That was the question he really wanted to ask. Ivisa remained silent. She remained silent. Sigh. I'm so heartbroken. We've been together for so long, and even if I don't talk about how much I've given, my unquenchable passion for you is no less than Winnie's, right? Otherwise, why do you think I would willingly sleep on the ceiling for so long? It's so cold on the ceiling, and my back aches all night. I can't even move. Perseus spoke with a pitiful expression, almost crying as he went on. He covered his face with his hands while peeking at her reaction through his fingers, barely suppressing the urge to smile. What do you want me to say? Ivisa, with her cold expression, couldn't hold out any longer. Tell me your opinion of me, just like you judged Winnie. Give me your opinion. I don't want to comment. Why? I don't know how to say it. Perseus stared at her profile, paused for a moment, and then couldn't help but laugh. Ivisa's eyelashes fluttered, and she unconsciously clenched her hands. Perseus walked over and drew the curtains, then stood in front of Ivisa, who was looking down. Honey, I'm about to head out. It's a long night. What if you have trouble sleeping again? Perseus chuckled. Ivisa remained expressionless, but her cheeks flushed for a fleeting, almost illusory, moment that made Perseus stare wide-eyed. Your method is completely useless. I still couldn't sleep last night, but you slept soundly, Ivisa accused coldly. I'm so sorry. I forgot that this is a method for putting babies to sleep, and it's less effective for mothers. Perseus apologized sincerely. Keep yelling. Her face was flushed red in the dimly lit room, almost glowing. Her school uniform skirt was crumpled into a ball, but her face remained expressionless. So cute it's maddening. Perseus's mind went blank for a moment. When he regained consciousness, Ivisa was already lying on the bed, her rapid breathing causing her full breasts to heave. Perseus bent down and gently pulled off her hair tie. With her hair down, she looks exceptionally captivating. Ivisa turned her head to one side, avoiding his burning gaze, and covered her face with one hand, obscuring her entire expression. Just for a little while at most. I don't want it to be like last night. Her rosy lips moved slightly. I'm so happy. I've forgotten how to unbutton my clothes. What should I do? Perseus was annoyed. After a brief silence, she gently twisted his face with her other hand, then slowly moved her hand down, unbuttoning her clothes one button at a time. He's not even looking, and he's using only one hand. The progress is too slow. As soon as the second button was undone, Perseus lost all reason. Chapter 76, The Strange Mrs. Lamander. Outside the school gate, Perseus boarded the carriage sent by Helen to pick him up. By then it was already half dark. I got off the bus halfway and managed to buy a bunch of carnations and a bouquet of roses just before the flower shop closed, before continuing on to Lamandel's house. Perseus noticed something was wrong when the carriage stopped in front of the steps. A red carpet was laid on the steps, extending all the way into the house, and melodious and soothing piano music could be heard from inside the villa. Perseus got out of the carriage carrying 2 bouquets of flowers, and the carriage sped away. Looking around, it was pitch black outside, but the lights were on behind the door, and the only sounds were the piano and the rushing of the fountain. Perseus hesitated for a moment, then straightened his back and stepped onto the red carpet, walking to the front door. Then, in an instant, all the lights went out. Then, 2 candlelights lit up, illuminating Helen's serene profile. She was wearing a beautiful red halter dress, and her face seemed to be lightly made up. Even her hair was up in an updo. She looked like she had changed her style, exuding an impressive mature charm. Perseus looked down at himself and realized he had come in his school uniform, looking like a complete novice. No, they didn't say it would be like this beforehand. How can he possibly be compared to a mature, older woman like that? However, he still walked over quietly. In the candlelight, Helen wore an elegant and intellectual smile, but did not look over. Perseus walked up to her, knelt on one knee, and presented her with a bouquet of roses. Thanks. Helen finally looked over, gladly accepted his flowers, and then noticed that he was holding a bouquet of carnations in his other hand. Honey, this is a date, not meeting the parents. You don't need to fawn over my mom at this time, do you? Helen frowned slightly. Perseus was speechless. He knew he was in an embarrassing situation. She's already asleep. Put these flowers in a vase first, and I'll tell her that you sent them especially for her when she wakes up. Helen snapped her fingers. A servant dressed as a messenger silently emerged from the shadows and took the bouquet of carnations. Helen kissed the rose before placing it on the table, and then helped Perseus up from the ground. He could enjoy the same treatment as the roses twice over, but I just love your silly side. Perseus smiled. After the two were seated, the dishes were served one by one without any further instructions. While eating the main course, Perseus absent-mindedly cut his steak, occasionally glancing across the table. That's why they say even old married couples still need to spend money on each other from time to time. Two people who always interacted in a fixed way suddenly had such an amazing effect when they changed their style. He couldn't wait to eat the real main course. Isn't it beautiful? Helen smiled with a hint of pride, but her smile was very reserved. Beautiful, Perseus said without hesitation. Real. That's good. Helen smiled contentedly. At this point, Perseus wanted to complain about his only complaint. You should have told me earlier that tonight's date was like this, that I wouldn't have had to wear my school uniform. Then what do you think it is? Helen asked, looking puzzled. Well, that's not something you can say openly. Just like the previous times, we chatted casually after dinner. I followed her into her room, and we chatted casually. At this point, Helen would deliberately seduce him, pretending to be innocent and naive, which would make him very angry. Once she stopped being naughty and became completely obedient, the two kissed goodbye. Finally, he went home to find Ivisa. Thinking about it carefully, that doesn't really seem like a date. I'm truly ashamed. He used to be like a gorilla in heat. Of course, Miss Helen was no better off. Did you enjoy the food today? She asked again. Very good. Although it was nice, he had already eaten with Ivisa before coming, so he wasn't very hungry. But I was hungry. Suddenly, Helen sighed, let her hair down, and called out in a rather unladylike manner. Serve the dessert now. What's wrong? Perseus asked. Nothing much. I just suddenly lost my patience, Helen said. You don't look very hungry, but even if you are, there's nothing you can do now. You'll have to wait until tomorrow morning for your next meal. She seemed to be implying something. Then hopefully the dessert will be enough to fill me up, Perseus smiled. Don't worry. I'll make sure you don't miss out on your trip. Helen stared intently at him, picked up the whole steak with her fork, took a big bite, and chewed vigorously. Perseus had completely forgotten what dessert he had eaten. The elaborately arranged candlelight dinner ended hastily. Helen pushed him into the room and then went out again, saying she needed to remove her makeup and change clothes. Actually, that outfit was quite nice. It would be best to put your hair up again. Perseus sat obediently on the bed, like a primary school student, his mind racing with many thoughts at the same time. The door suddenly opened, and Mrs. Lamanthal walked in. She was wearing a nightgown. Her long blonde hair was loose, and she looked exhausted. She wasn't even wearing shoes, as if she had just gotten out of bed and come over. Perseus quickly stood up. Madam, hello. I heard you were already asleep. I'm so sorry for not greeting you properly. Go back now, Mrs. Lamanthal said expressionlessly. Huh? Is she trying to kick people out? Fortunately, Perseus was thick-skinned, and he didn't move even though his master said that. Madam, what did you say? If you don't want to regret it later, go back, Mrs. Lamanthal said. It's nonsensical. He had always felt that the Duchess was somewhat mentally unstable, but he hadn't inquired about it because Helen was very sensitive about matters concerning her. Lady, this is my final warning to you. Get out of here. Mrs. Lamanthal pounced on him, her face contorted with rage, and grabbed his hand, squeezing it painfully, before pulling him toward the door. The Vantales family has excellent genes. Mrs. Lamanthal, like her niece Lovia, is a tall woman with a height of nearly 1.8 meters. Although she always looks listless, she is really strong. Perseus couldn't resist, so he could only be dragged away little by her. Then Mrs. Lamanthal suddenly stopped, her body visibly stiffening. Wearing her school uniform, Helen stood at the door with an innocent smile. Mother, why didn't you tell the maid to let me know you were awake? Instead, you came here and started arguing with my boyfriend. Doesn't that seem a bit against aristocratic etiquette? Mrs. Lamanthal couldn't even utter a complete sentence. Nara, escort the lady back to her room. Helen raised her voice. A maid rushed in, took Mrs. Ramanthal's hand, and led her towards the door. But she still clung tightly to Perseus's arm, staring at him with a chillingly empty gaze. Perseus felt a chill run down his spine. Helen came over herself and helped Perseus break free from the other party's control. Tonight, I don't want Madame to appear anywhere other than in her room, Helen said to the maid with a smile. Yes,